Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby, yeah. You don't say very this. You know what happened?
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News.
I'm Ruben Abati.
And I'm Oji Akpe.
Our next guest is 35-year-old Nigerian presidential aspirant, Chike Ukaegbu, who is hoping to be the youngest black president in the world. Chike, I like that.
That's quite an introduction. The youngest black president in the world.
You are 35. Yeah. And the first major job you want to take is to be president of Nigeria. Isn't that too ambitious?
Well, what would you classify as being too ambitious? I don't think it is, right? Because the truth is, as a Nigerian who is qualified by age and qualification as well, I think everyone who has what it takes to lead the nation should have the right to step up. So in that case, I wouldn't classify that service to your nation as being too ambitious. If anything, it should be applauded.
These young people, do they have the relevant experience? What experience are you bringing to the table?
You start to wonder when you have the same people, you know, recycling themselves. The truth is, like I said, this is actually the second time we've had a military dictator come back as a civilian, right? You start to ask yourself, 20 years is enough time for us to do trial and error before we start to figure something out. So experience has not done us any good. The great thing about not having the sort of experience that we have right now is you come with fresher perspectives, you come with different perspectives. Especially having lived outside, you understand a whole different perspective to quality of life. Now, talking about experience, if we look at education, so my background is in biomedical engineering, so I understand STEM, science, tech, education, engineering, and math. I was a Colin Powell Fellow in Public Policy and Leadership, which allowed me to research and understand youth disconnection. And when we talk about Nigeria having the largest population of disconnected youth, my experience from that becomes very relevant. I went on to Cornell to study executive management and leadership, and then went on to Stanford for an executive certificate in venture capital and investments. The reason why this is important is the first venture I set up was a nonprofit called Real Life, focused on disconnected and at-risk youth, and using tech, education, and entrepreneurship to empower them. In 2014, though, I came back home and I set up a scholarship fund, focused on the same thing, provided academic scholarships and seed capital for young entrepreneurs here. All of the education that I got was channeled into human capital development, right? So beyond Real Life, I set up the first diversity-focused tech accelerator in New York City called Startup 52. And our goal was to create better access to resources, to capital, to a network for founders from what we call untapped communities. And if you look at Nigeria, every single sector in our nation is literally what I would classify as untapped. So it's relevant experience in developing young people, in equipping young people with what they need to become self-sufficient, provide for their community, and improve the economy as a whole.
Greetings, family. This is Kyle Dixon here for another episode of the Grand Rise Collective. We bring you a special guest today, none other than one of our friends, great friends, who has been many different things, not only here in America, New York City in particular, but also across the waters in his home country, Nigeria. But let me go in reference of who we are. Grand Rise Collective is a platform that empowers, engages, initiates, and informs the people, right? We bring hosts on here. We talk about certain topics that allow us to be able to grow and find solutions, family, solutions. There's a lot of issues, problems going on in the world, but we're here for solutions. So just a little bit of background on me. I'm Kyle Dixon, educator, entrepreneur of Precise Minds Filmworks for 15 years, educator for 20 years. And we are bringing the info for you, right? So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Kylie Bentley. Take it away, sir.
Thank you very much, brother. And as usual, y'all, I'm trying to be concise with my introduction. So once again, I am, because like Kyle said, we have an amazing guest on here today. and inspiration to me, bro. I can't tell y'all. And if I veer off and I get a little too personal and I'm laughing a little too much, it's because that's how much this guest inspires me and makes me laugh and just an inspiration, man. Along with my colleague Kyle, both of them, man. I'm just honored to have both of them here. So without any further delay, my name is Ukaegbu Bentley. I'm president and founder of an organization called 4T's Teaching Teens to Think, whose mission is to help inner city youth identify their inherent skill set so that way they can use their skill set in order to establish a career and ultimately start a business if they choose to. That's just one of the hats that I wear. The other hat that I wear is a professor at Fordham University, where I teach a bunch of students who are pursuing their master's degree in social justice and social services and starting organizations as well that help the social cause. The third hat that I wear is sitting on the advisory board of LIU, same capacity, just at another institution where there's students who are pursuing their degrees, master's degrees in social justice and social service, whereas at an advisory capacity, I can direct them and guide them in the area of tools and resources in order to accomplish that. Those are the three hats that I wear, and I think it's important that you understand who's speaking to you as well as who you're listening to. So without any further delay, if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on my social media handles. But again, without any further delay, we got a banger right here now. Now, Kyle brought him in. He did the thing, right? But it's cool with me too. I just didn't have time to follow up with this guy's schedule. Without any further delay, you can't please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hey. You guys are hilarious. Great to be here. These are like my brothers. My name is Chike Ukaegbu, founder of Startup 52, which is a tech accelerator focused on creating better access to resources and capital for founders from untapped communities. So I practically say I am a tech entrepreneur. Besides that, I'm also very passionate about politics. Sorry about that. So I say that my purpose, the work that I do, the entirety of the work that I do, is centered at the intersection of innovation and public service. I ran for office in Nigeria last year as the youngest person to run for president on the continent so far. So I am very passionate about politics and very passionate about, Africa and of course people of African descent globally. So it is definitely a delight to be here with you guys today, and I look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Awesome, brother.
Yes, man. Yes. So, family, before we start, you see, I normally don't rock a hat, but you see my brothers had the hat on, so I had to fall in line for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Make it official.
It's Kayade's fault. It's Kayade's fault.
Yes, it is. It is his fault. But no, family, this is going to be a special show. I mean, this brother right here, to be honest, really, he helped to bring us all together. I mean, I don't know if Grand Rise Collective might even exist in this form if it were not for this brother, Chief.
Oh, wow.
I mean that with all sincerity. I mean, like, this brother has a really strong, kind, and like, community spirit within him. And that's one of the things. He's one of the first people that I met moving to New York. And you know what I'm saying? He just, the brother just does a lot. He's always doing something like productive, like always, man. Like, tell us, man, where that comes from, man. Like that spirit of just like going about it and just really like following through with like your plans and ideas.
So many of you may not know, you guys do know. I am Nigerian. I was born in Nigeria. I spent the first 19 years there. And usually when people ask me, what is it that drives you? What creates a man? Chike. Looking back, I'd say it's two things. One, it was the environment that I grew up in, right? It takes a village to raise a child. Truly was embodied in our experience growing up, right? So it wasn't just daddy and mommy, it wasn't just uncles and aunts, it was church, it was school, it was everyone practically, coming together to ensure that every single person made it. So that sense of community, I think, was something that subconsciously was inherent within us growing up, right? Now, the second part of it was actually coming to America. I tell people when I came here, I didn't know I was Black. I grew up in a majority Black nation, in fact, the largest Black nation in the world. So nobody,
206 million, right?
Sorry?
206 million, right?
208 right now.
208.
208
Okay.
million, yes. You know, nobody prepares you for this whole new identity that we had to take on coming to America, right? And the challenging thing about this new identity was it contradicted everything that we are taught to believe about ourselves, right? The American society tells you, you know, being Black is supposed to be subpar, it's supposed to be criminal, it's supposed to be, you know, everything negative, right? So in a bid to fight back against these new identities that I did not like for myself, I began to understand the importance of using one's privilege or one's voice to fight for other people, right? So when people ask me, why do you do what you do? Is an understanding that the only way that we can leave a better world for people coming after us is if we completely expend all the energy we have ensuring that we can make the world a better place for them. So I think those are the two driving forces: community, you know, family background, and then just the experience of being Black in America. Those two things found a way to merge and have driven what I would describe as purpose in my life.
Yeah. Okay. I know, right? Deep, right? And Chike, I'm gonna go right in, right? You know, like Chike started a family. He started a organization called like Black Hire, and that was one of the things that I really connected with him on early on when we first met each other. And Chike, could you really talk to the family about, because you know, you and I kind of talk about this constantly, but that whole dynamic of the separation of African, so quote unquote African American versus African, right? The whole, it's not even really a versus, but they play it as such. Man, speak on that, because that's one thing that we really connected on, the fact that you recognize that there was certain discrimination and there's certain ideas that African Americans held on to that also perpetuated the divide with other Africans in the diaspora. Could you, man, please talk about that? Because I know we talk about that.
Okay, so I think there was once one of my cousins asked me, like, why are you so passionate about the African American experience? You're not even African American. And I said, yes, I'm not African American, but I'm African in America, right? And my experiences are now, whether I like it or not, linked to that Black experience, right? And I told him this. I said, listen, if a racist cop encounters me on the streets, he's not asking me if I'm Nigerian or if I'm from Congo. No, all he sees is a Black body that to him may pose a threat, even though, you know, little me cannot be a threat to anybody, you know? So it was in recognizing that we cannot, as a people, keep separating our experiences or keep trying to find these divides that separate us as a people, right? So yes, I talk about the Blackness and all of this negative stereotypes and connotations that came with it. But also the one part that I embraced greatly was in recognizing that this Blackness also put me into this global family of excellence, right? There was now, I discovered that there was something called Black excellence. And Black excellence is not just because I'm Nigerian. No, it's in the Caribbean, it's in South America, it's in, you know, it's global, right? Like people of African descent and their struggles and their triumphs in you know, overcoming centuries and centuries of discrimination, you know, slavery and all that stuff, means that I have a power within me that, whether I like it or not, is dominant. And it depends on me to activate that power to achieve more excellence for the people coming behind me. So once you recognize that, you stop seeing yourself as, oh, an Igbo boy. I mean, that identity is still there, because I think diversity is beautiful. The things that make us unique, you know, is beautiful. But first and foremost, I am Black. Before African, before Nigerian, before Igbo, right? So once we come to that understanding that we are one people, it makes it easier to start to find ways to unite ourselves, because that is the only way our collective power would have more impact, right? When we all come together, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what tribe or ethnicity and all that stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, come on. I gotta stay focused, y'all. I told you how to do that. All right, so Chike, you know I deal with the inner city youth, and you know I deal with the complexities and all that other stuff with the education system. First of all, how did you get to America, and what were the challenges that you faced in school in an American society personally that you can share with other African American, other Africans who have come into the country or may have been born here, who have African parents who are from the motherland and, gave birth to African children, but are African American. Can you elaborate on your experience, education-wise, the challenges you experienced in school and just in American society as an African coming into this country? What are the challenges that you experienced that you could share?
Cool. So education was my pathway to come into America, right? Told my parents I wanted to go to America to study. And at first they were like, no, you're not going. And then it went from no, you're not going to recognizing, okay, this one is a mad one. He would go if he says he wanted to go. So everyone at some point fell in line with the plan. But coming to America, it was my first time being in a city with so many diverse people from diverse backgrounds, diverse religion, diverse countries. I heard of countries I had never heard of before at City College. At the time, I did not know the difference between Dominica and Dominican Republic. It was just funny, and encountering people from nations that you may have seen on a map but never thought existed, So that was one striking thing I would say that at first was a little uncomfortable, but I quickly adapted to that. Now, in terms of the experience, in my very first semester, I looking back now, and it was after I graduated that I realized that was actually a racist encounter. My first semester, I took 4 classes, and one of them was U.S. society, right? I had this older Jewish guy as my professor. He made us buy a book he wrote. We read that, and we read another book, blah, blah, blah. And, being Nigerian, being fresh in America, there's this academic hustle that if you know anything about Nigerians, you will get from every single one of them, right? So we, many times, Nigerians try to go above and beyond, And so I felt like, being fresh out of the boat, education was the entire focus. I went above and beyond for that class. But then I ended up with a B. And that was the only B I had that semester. And I went to the professor and I said, my midterms were A's, my papers were A's, How come I ended up with a B in your class? And he goes, well, there is no way you who just came from Nigeria can understand the US society to the point of getting an A. Wow. And, coming from the Nigerian educational system, which, trust me, American system is nothing compared to that, right? An A in Nigeria is 70 for you to make an A, right? Oh, yes. So here's the thing. So right now, I'm at Howard, and I had sent my results. I deviated a little bit. I'll come back to the story, to my parents.
Okay.
And my father was like, how can you be getting all these 90s and 100s, right? In Nigeria, professors take points for themselves. I am the professor of the class, so I get points for being the professor. So That's how much, in Nigeria, you're not going anywhere near 90. Anyway, so at the time, I thought, okay, this must be the system here. I'm a new student, professors, I guess, take points for themselves. This is how I ended up with a B. Okay, whatever. It was later that I'm like, wow, that was a racist encounter. There was another one, and in fact, this happened with a professor that I really respected. It was a humanities class. I think this was my sophomore year. And it was an honors class with the two parts to it. There was a music part and there was an art part. So this was a professor for the music part. Really liked him. We got along really, really well. Now, maybe 2 or 3 semesters later, I ran into him, like, anytime I did, I was like, hey, professor, and we have a conversation. And this one time, he was like, where are you from again? I'm like, oh, Nigeria. He's like, yeah. He goes, oh, I got duped of $10,000 from some Africans, I think they're from South Africa, and it was, and I froze, like, by then I had gradually started to understand the American experience. And I'm looking at this old white man. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, you remembered me because you got duped for your greed. Because many times when people tell you, oh, the scammers got them, it is because someone is telling you, oh, give me 10,000 and, when I get this 2 million, we can split it 50-50.
Right.
So it is your greed that got you swindled. And I'm like, wow, this is America. So yeah, there was one other experience. I was a freshman. I was a Colin Powell. No, it was my upper sophomore year. I was a Colin Powell fellow, and we had this gala at City College for former alumni that the school was trying to get them to donate money. So they sat me on a table with a bunch of people, but next to me was this alumni who graduated from the School of Engineering, but had gone on to become an attorney, very successful guy. So he got fascinated by my story coming from Nigeria, and these semi-illiterates would tell you, oh, you speak good English for someone who comes from Africa. They think they're giving you a compliment. I'm like, shut the F up. Excuse my language, by the way. We got talking, and this so-called educated man goes on to say, hey, I have a very good, I know an African, really good African man that, I worked with. He's a very honest guy and blah, 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 blah. And he called his name and he goes, do you know him? And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, why the heck would I know this person? He goes, oh yeah, he's from Kenya. You don't know him? I'm like, excuse my language, I wouldn't use certain words, but I'm like, I know this thing is being recorded. Are you? I don't even know all the people in my family. Like, my great-grandfather had 25 wives, plus other concubines. So I don't know half the people that are in my family. Why would I know someone from Kenya that you know your business for? It was just like, I'm like, these Americans are dumb as hell. This is me, fresh off the boat, thinking in my head, I'm like, wow, Americans can be quite dumb. There are 54 nations on the continent, Learn your geography or something.
Yes, Kenya's on the other side of the continent.
Like I have never even been to Kenya. I'm like, yeah, we live on the trees, When he wakes up in the morning and he waves from his treetop, I see him in Nigeria. Idiot. Yeah, so, but these were more like the fun, stupid experiences. This other one actually happened after I graduated and I was teaching. Kyle, you and I taught at City College.
Right.
And, this was in 2014. I cannot forget. I had finished teaching the class. I was headed to the parking lot on St. Nicholas and 145. There was a zip car parking lot then at the time. This was in the afternoon, maybe at 3. I had my laptop in my hand. I was running to go pick up a car because I was supposed to drive to Amish Town in Pennsylvania to go pick up Bo, a dog that I had just bought.
Yes.
So I'm running now. I had run down Convent. I had just turned onto 141st, running down the hill with my laptop. And by the time I got to the end of the whatever streets, that's 141st and St. Nick, 3 cop cars had pulled over and they stopped me. And I'm like wondering, like, this is 3 in the afternoon. Like, why are we here? Oh, that they got a call that there's a missing laptop and someone is running away with a laptop. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, are you serious? Like, I mean, even if I were running away, why would you need 6 cops here, all armed, for a laptop? I'm like, 1, this is my laptop. 2, I just came from teaching a class at City College, right? And they insisted I showed them my ID, my faculty ID, which did not mean anything. They're like, oh, I should open the laptop and put the password if it's mine. And I did before they let me go. But that encounter was a life-changing one for me, right? I stood at that spot literally for maybe a good 10, 15 minutes, thinking in my head, this is how I could have died here today for whatever reason, right? And it was at that point that the whole response I told you guys I gave to my cousin dawned on me. I'm like, these people just see color. That's it. They don't care that I'm Nigerian. They don't care that I have a job. They don't care that maybe, just maybe, I may be an upstanding citizen. No, all they just see is a criminal factor because of the color of my skin. And the funny thing was, I most likely was more educated than all of them that showed up that day. So it was at that point I realized, yes, this whole African-American disconnect or divide makes no sense. We are all in this same battle for, the freedom of the Black man.
One follow-up question, Cal, before you get with yours.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Chike, for sharing that, because we've all experienced that to some degree, law enforcement affecting us this way. So the challenge that these young people have in regards to their frustrations, just in general, right? Regarding the whole, there's this book I read called Black Hole, where we face it in getting loans from banks. There's a school to prison pipeline, which we talked about, police set up in schools. So African-American experiences, male and female, but particularly since we're males, we're speaking from the Black male perspective, the attack that they face on a daily basis from the time they walk out their door is this kind of pressure. Real quick, before Cal brings up his question, what advice can you give to young people in how to process that in a constructive way? Whereas their initial reaction won't be something that could end up them losing their lives.
Right.
Especially what we've been through these past few months with George Floyd,
Jacob Blake,
and all.
Breonna Taylor. And these are people who aren't even, they're in their home minding their business. Yeah.
So from your experience, Chike, what advice, tangibles, action steps, 1, 2, 3, or what have you, can you give a young person who may encounter something like that and have that same revelation? Hey, I could have died here. What advice can you give them?
I don't know if I have any advice.
Mm.
Because this is our daily experience, right? I know some people will tell you to comply. Some people will tell you to do what you need to do to leave that place alive, right? But as we talked about, Breonna Taylor was asleep. What was the name of the other boy that was in his own home and got killed? So it's not even about what you need to do to be alive, right? I don't know. I can't tell you that I know what to tell any young person besides young king, young queen, stay alive. Now, for me, sometimes the way I process it personally is I look at them and I shake my head. And I shake my head because I understand that they recognize that the power within me is greater than whatever it is they have or could ever be. So they're not threatened by my skin. They're threatened by the power that I have within me as a Black man to be whatever it is that I want to be. The resilience that we have within us to survive half a millennium, even with, very intense oppression and the trauma and the pain and the sorrow and the tears, even through all of that, here we still are, right? So for me, that is where I find my power. That is where I find my solace in moments like that, to say, you don't have the power to break me. You will not. And then in that moment, that becomes, okay, my response has to align with that understanding. These are people who are intimidated by my power. So I am the one in control here. And being in control sometimes means being silent. Being in control sometimes means feeling pity for you because you're ignorant, because you're less, right? So it depends on the encounter, the experience. But what I do is I introspect sometimes in moments like that to ask myself, what would be the outcome of my reaction? And how will that affect somebody else's life? So I can't tell you I have an advice. I can't tell you, don't wear studs or, look the part. Like people try to tell you, practically dress white. That's aligning with the oppressor. I can't tell you that because that's not the way that I feel. Even though for some people, they're like, well, that's how you survive. Okay, if that's how you survive, good for you. For me, is understanding the power that I have within me and saying, how can I use this power in this situation to ensure that that resilient spirit that I have comes out on top?
Thank you, brother.
Indeed, brother. Indeed. And I wholeheartedly believe, with that power that we have within us, like I said, not just the skin. The skin is a representation, the physical manifestation of seeing it, but it is that what we hold within from our history, from our culture, from the resilience, from the determination, from the strength, the love we have for ourselves. And I really resonate with that. And I want to go into that in reference of when we talk about the tech space, right? Because you know about that extensively, and you actually helped introduce me into the tech space, one of the people, along with another brother, Alvin Singh, who we also interviewed on here. Could you speak about, like, we talk about the power or empowering in reference of the STEM careers, but more specifically like tech? Because we notice, I think less than 5%, if 10% of Black folks in tech. And why do you think that space will, or let me ask this, why do you think that space will help us or be a tool for us to be able to get in certain spaces that we're not necessarily in? And especially with currently, with the election going on, which we'll get into, but how do you feel like tech will help us to kind of break open those places where we weren't, quote unquote, let in, and we can kind of bust the door open and kind of make ourselves known. You know?
Okay. Let me make sure that I don't tailor off. Like when I talk about stuff like this, sometimes I tend to go everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, I'll tell you in itself, I don't think tech can save us, right? You know, for those who followed my candidacy in Nigeria, there were 3 pillars of my candidacy. It was tech, it was education, it was entrepreneurship. And I still believe that these 3 things must work hand in hand for any of them to be effective. And here's why. We're sitting right now at the cusp or intersection of the past, the present, and what the future could be. And when I mean the future, a future defined by, you know, technologies of the future, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all that stuff. Now, I think those technologies of the future would lead humanity into what the next phase of maybe even evolution would look like. And one of the, if you ask me, once again, these are all personal opinions, right? These are not facts. One of the greatest saving grace of the Black race, if you ask me, is the fact that whether you like it or not, whether people agree or not, we're the original. That proximity to nature, to life, period. So in some way, yes, the Black seed of life will never be extinguished, if you ask me. However, though, it is important that we leverage technology to ensure that we don't enter another age of oppression, of slavery. Right? And Africa would have to lead that. Now, the opportunity that's there, that I keep trying to get people to see, and people are not, is one, Africa has the largest population of young people globally. I mean, the population of young people in Nigeria alone, say 30 and under, would make the second largest nation in Africa.
Wow.
Which most likely would be the second largest Black nation in the world.
Wow. Yes.
So more than half of our, in fact, maybe 3/4 of our population is still under 35.
Man, that's a
average age in Chad, in Niger, and I think in the Congos, about still around 15, average age.
Really?
Yes. In Nigeria, it's 18 or 18.2. So Africa has a very young population, which is why both the East and the West are looking for ways to, you know, come in now, because the oil of the future is human capital.
Right.
Data and human capital, right? So it is important that both the diaspora and the continent start to come together to find ways to start to build our own technologies. That is funded, not technologies that will be funded by Google and Facebook and Amazon. No, because they own it. But our own technologies funded by our people. We're not going anywhere until we figure it out. Now that's one. Two, the other thing is, I think the way we even fund technology needs to change. We've so tied ourselves to Western culture that we think one size fits all. If it works for them, it has to work for us. No. The way venture capital works is they discover technology, they fund it, they throw a lot of money on it until, you know, they own the market and blah, blah, blah. For us, it's different. For us, we have to take a holistic approach to funding things like that. not only are you funding technologies, you have to start now to fund or groom the next group of political leaders that will protect those investments, right? So it's, and like I said, I'll just tailor off if I want to talk about this.
No, this is on point, bro. No, you hit
the point
the question. Wasn't always on.
Same thing, even here, right? And hopefully when we get into talking about the last election here, I could delve a little bit more into it. But what people don't understand is that even in America today, right? As at I think 2016 or 2017, you had more children of color who were 16 and younger than white kids.
Ooh.
And if that was 2016, 2017, it means that age has gone up. It's most likely around 18, 19, 20 right now.
Right.
Where you have more children of color than white kids.
Yep.
So the future of America, even in our time, would be colored, multicultural. And the question is, how are we preparing ourselves for that future? Many of us were, busy screaming and shouting and talking about Donald Trump's 4 years, the last 4 years. What white people were doing was trying to put into place, systems that would secure their power for another century, because they have looked at those numbers, they have looked at data, and they have seen that projection. We are the ones not preparing ourselves or taking advantage of it. And that's the problem we always have as our people. So, okay, back to technology. Yes, so technology will work for us when we're sure we're educated about how to use it. Okay. We use technology to scale out our solutions, and entrepreneurship will monetize those solutions. So you cannot keep it, it cannot stand on its own. For it to work for us, it must be interdependent with education and entrepreneurship.
Well, this guy's dangerous, man.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. I mean, exactly right. It cannot be onto itself. It has to be connected to other industries, other plans, in order to help it fulfill its potential or what it could be. Right. You can't just have tech and, like I said, not have policies and people to invest in it. And then once those people invest in, you got to have legislation and people in those political positions to be able to not structure, but be able to kind of protect it from certain laws, or to be able to break certain laws too. That regulation. So no, that's a great point. I think people do miss that. It's just about and get money and what's the newest thing, what's the most shiniest object or program.
What kind of role? Right. What makes Nigeria such unique from the other 54 African countries? And would you say Nigeria will be the catalyst, I guess, for this merging of the technology and the development of our culture to make sure we enforce these policies and legislation to make sure it's protected, and how we approach capitalizing on this next advantage that we have with regards to the information age, data, and all that. So if you got it, okay. That's a lot.
I believe that the pathway to the salvation of the Black race runs through Nigeria.
Speak on that.
So Nigeria is Africa's, largest economy. It's the most populous Black nation in the world. People don't also realize that at least 1 in 4 slaves that came to North America came from the Bight of Biafra, which is, Nigeria. In fact, I think it's definitely more than that, because Biafra is just the southeastern part, or the southern end of Nigeria. The Igbo, mostly the Igbo nation. But then there were also slave ports from Badagry, which is Yoruba and all that. So definitely, but I think it seemed like many of the Yoruba pathway went to South America. So the Brazils and then to some of the Caribbean islands.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
to North America, 25% or more came from the Bight of Biafra. Now, we could go into much deeper conversation about slavery and its connection to the continent and all that stuff, but I'll spare you guys that unless you want to have a conversation about it. But here's what I eventually. Part of the reason why, if you ask me, many Western nations want to see Nigeria divided is the power we have, first and foremost, is in our numbers. By 2050, Nigeria becomes the third most populous nation in the world.
Is it 2050?
In 30 years, yes.
30 years, yeah.
You would have more people in tiny Nigeria than you have in the entire United States of America. Mind you,
and
Alaska,
how large is Nigeria? Just to give people
that's what I'm trying to paint a picture. Alaska is bigger than Nigeria.
Wow.
Yeah. Alaska is bigger than Nigeria. May be just a little, maybe I want to say 1.5 times the size of California. I may be wrong. It may not even be up to 1.5 times the size of California in terms of land mass, right?
Yes.
But definitely Alaska, land mass wise, is bigger than Nigeria. And in 30 years, Nigeria will have more people in it than the entire United States of America. So when I talk about the importance of Nigeria to the Black race, right? Even in America, Nigerians are the most educated, ethnic groups here. Nigerians send home a whole lot of money. Nigerians actually send home, Nigerians in the diaspora send home more money to Nigeria than sometimes our national budget. Yeah. Yeah, Kaya, they fixed your face.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. I mean, y'all know. Hey, real talk. Chike, just to interject real quick. Y'all know him for getting the bag, man. That's the the word on the street. That people pass around. Get that bag,
Hey, so I think that Nigeria's responsibility as the largest Black nation, also as Africa's largest economy, includes being able to speak up and to fight for people of African descent globally. And it has failed in that responsibility. I don't think any other nation in Africa can do that because of size and impact. Now, Ghana started trying to step up to that plate, but Ghana has less people than Lagos. It stays in Nigeria, right? So until Nigeria, sits up and takes on that responsibility, it will be hard to galvanize the kind of support globally that's needed. Now, here's the other reason why I don't think African Americans can do it. African Americans have lived all their lives subjected to the oppressive systems of the white man, right? So their perspectives in terms of liberation, whether we agree or not, is skewed. Just like many Nigerians in Nigeria understand the problems of the lack of leadership that we have. But because they have, for the lack of a better word, because they're incarcerated in that system, their perspectives for solutions will also be skewed because of that lack of another perspective. So fighting for the soul or the liberation of the Black race globally has to be a combined effort effort between the continent and the diaspora, because they would bring two different things to the table that are extremely crucial for the success of that fight.
Mm-hmm.
But while this other side is ready, the African American side is ready, Nigeria is not. So Nigeria, practically, recognizes it or not, is holding back that liberation of the Black race. And I don't think, I think that mantle of leadership now falls on our generation. The people there, I don't think can do it.
Our generation, in terms of African,
millennials.
Okay.
Millennials and below, yeah. Because for our parents and the people who are in power, there were people who learned leadership from the colonial perspective.
Okay.
So they also have the skills of colonialism that impairs judgment in a way that they can be effective. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Program.
You take on the characteristics of your oppressor, you know, because it's the only example you know of quote unquote leading or governing, you know, a particular place.
I'll say part of it, to chime in, is indoctrination and programming as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, makes sense.
You just turned my water into wine.
Yeah.
Ron usually comes 3 different colors. It's either
no, it's juice. He turned it into juice.
Yeah, I thought so. Go on there. Yo, Chi, what did you finish that thought? Did you finish your thought?
I mean, there's more to be said, but I think for now that's a good end to it.
Part 2. We're gonna do a part 2. Bruh, so you ran for the president. You still my president, homie. The president of Nigeria.
Youngest.
And we talked about the youngest president of Nigeria.
Youngest candidate. Yeah.
And I know you got to share this, bro, because we talked about this before.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? Politics more involved over there versus America? Why is that? The political party situation. He was like, there's 30 political parties.
Right.
92.
92?
Yeah, 91 or 92 parties.
92 political parties, and we're arguing over here about 2?
Actually, America has a whole lot more than that.
Tell us about the experience,
but we focus on just those 2.
We focus on just 2, but America may actually have over 1,000 political parties.
Wow.
Look it up. Google it.
Okay, we will. We shall. Family, Google it.
No, yeah. I mean, can you Google it right now? I just want to.
All right, real time. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, because that's one of the things that we talk about heavily, like in civics classes. You know, that people can start their own political party, but how will it not work? But how will it stand up to be noticed and really be taken seriously against the main 2 political parties, the Republicans? You know.
Can you check that?
Independent party.
Yeah, but anyway, Nigeria has 91, or at least as at the last election, there were 91 political parties, and there were 72 presidential candidates.
I was like, now that you're saying, like, we know what the population with 208 million, when you think about the population, how dense it is, that makes sense.
So there are people who would tell you that, you know, the population, whatever density is bad, you know, it's too much, it's da-da-da-da-da. I actually think that's one of Nigeria's greatest strengths. Yeah.
Why is that? Because again, you know, people thinking like people on top of people, you know, like here in New York, like.
Of course, the disadvantage we have right now is ineffective leadership. So there's, you know, wide scale poverty and hunger and all that. Yes. But for a population like that, what people don't understand is actually hunger proliferates. Did I say that word right?
Proliferates.
Anyway, yeah. Population. Because most times, most poor people tend to have more babies. And sometimes it's a survival thing. It's, I don't know who's going to make it, right? Or I need more hand to farm, you know, to help, whatever. But the poorer a population, the more they tend to make babies. So I think that it is a topic that would need to be looked at when we fix the quality of life of the everyday Nigerian. So I don't think, you know, that there is a faction who's been clamoring for breaking out Biafra, my people, practically. And many of them get so mad at me because I'm like, no, I don't agree. Breaking yourself out does not solve your problem at all. I'm like, if you feel like things are not working, look at your state governors. They're all people from your town, from the state, right? So if they're embezzling funds, it is not a federal thing. It is a state thing. It's still your people. So even if you break out, if you don't change that mindset and that paradigm shift is not there, you're still taking all of those same problems to your division.
Yeah.
Right? I said, look at America. With all of its racial problem and that, there's still one nation. One nation. Because that's where you have power, not in the division. The entire continent of North America has only 3 nations in it. Africa itself has 54. Or maybe 55, but those who claim to recognize Biafra, you know? So that has been a weapon that has been used against us, because if we were one nation, if Africa were 1 or 2 nations, power would be concentrated with the people. So, you know, foreigners or foreign influence will find it a little bit more difficult to exploit our people. Or let's keep you guys poor and keep you underdeveloped so that your brilliant minds, we have, you know, systems and ways to filter your brilliant minds out of your nation and pull them into ours. That way we keep you where you are while these other people are developed in our nations. So, you know, brain drain, everything, you know, exploitation of resources, all of that. Did you find it?
I think this is what you're looking for, right?
Does it give you a number?
No, just a list.
A long list.
A long list. Look at this.
Party, Libertarian, like we saw, Bread and Roses Party, wow, Green Rainbow Party.
Many Americans don't know that.
Party, Legal Marijuana Now Party, wow.
I am right. It's either you have over 1,000. I think it's 1032. I may be wrong.
Yes.
The 1032. Is that what it says?
It doesn't give me a number, but I'm still scrolling down this list, and the list continues.
Okay, because some, you know, some are repeat. You know, okay, some, you know, of course, some are repeat, but like, you know, we got DC Statehood Party, Constitution Party.
So yeah, so there are either 1032 parties, or there were 1032 candidates who ran for president in this last election.
Yes.
Now, Chike, you said the 3 nations as far as in North America. Could you like just briefly break that down? You said that like, because people think it's one nation, right? But as far as your classification, your definition, like the 3 nations in North America.
I mean, you have the US, you have Canada, and you have Mexico.
Right, exactly.
Right. So, and the funny thing is, I think Canada's population is 1/10 the population of America, but they have more landmass than America does. Canada is bigger than, I think Canada may be the 2nd largest nation in terms of landmass behind Russia, I think. I may be wrong. But the point is, you know, there is no reason why Africa should have 54 nations, divided nations. And if they were to do that, they can adopt which they're trying to do is it just hasn't been as effective as it should or it could be. You know, Europe's system of the European Union, right?
Right. Currency, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of currency, in terms of trade, you know, make it easier for Africans to mingle. It's cheap. It's cheaper for me to fly from Nigeria to America than it is to fly from Nigeria to several places in Africa.
Really?
Yes.
Is that because of the different laws in reference of like taxing or?
It's just a system that you know, that exploits our people, period. Period. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Yeah.
So Chief, with that.
Oh yeah. We're talking about the election experience. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into the meat of that. So, like I talked about during my introduction, I said that the entirety of my work sits at the intersection of public service and innovation, right? There were, I want to say, 4 main reasons why I chose to run in the last election. And in fact, I had written this 8-page letter to myself, convincing myself as to why this was important. So the first one was hopelessness in the land, right? The blatant embezzlement of resources and funds meant for the people by the people we call leaders, right? And this has happened for decades and have put the people in a sense of, you know, the everyday Nigerian is hopeful in terms of, you know, things will get better. But there's a sense of hopelessness in terms of where the nation is going. I don't know if that even makes sense. Yeah. When you don't pay people salaries or pensions for 2, 3, 4 years, right? You don't fix anything. There are no roads, no schools, no hospitals. All of your children are outside the country going to school. You fly out for medical checkups. You know, I have not seen this anywhere else where a president of a nation leaves his country to go to another nation for medical checkup. Wow. And to me, that is not an indictment to how lousy your administration is, you know? So there was that sense of hopelessness that needed to be addressed, right? Nigeria has the largest population of people who live in extreme poverty today. You know, for a nation whose population is less than 1/5 the population of China and India, yet we have more people who live in extreme poverty than these nations, right? Mm-hmm. Then there was this lack of a sense of urgency for the future, right? Like I talked about, when we talk about the future we're walking into, this 4th industrial revolution, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that in Africa, many of us have not even gotten through the 1st industrial revolution, right? From electricity to, you know, transportation, road, railway, whatever. We haven't conquered those, not to talk about getting to digital before we now talk about 4th industrial revolution, AI, right? So that lack of urgency and thinking about the impact of this 4th industrial revolution on our populations that are uneducated, you know, unequipped, unskilled, or, you know, equipped for this future means that we're walking into a dystopian future, right? If today we have, you know, 30 to 50 million unemployed, imagine when automation comes in and decimates even more of the workforce, you know? So all of that. So that's lack of an urgency, lack of a sense of urgency for the future was one. The third one, of course, was this disconnect between, you know, the African diaspora and the continent, like I talked about. I believe that solving Africa's problems would have to involve, you know, collaboration between the continent and the diaspora. And we've explored some of the reasons why.
All right, before you continue on with your experience and all those reasons which led you to running for president, help a lot of us here, African Americans, or as they say, foundational Black Americans, or FBAs. That's the new term being used now.
Okay.
There's this woman by the name of Dr. Arikana. You ever heard of her?
Yeah.
Right. And she's talking about come home, right? So this big push of everybody coming home back to Africa, back to the motherland, how the motherland isn't as dire as the U.S. media is painting it. So they're giving mixed messages. So how does that line up, Chike, with what you're sharing with us, how far we're behind with technology and our development compared to, you know, Africa, the motherland, isn't as bad as they're painting it? Help us understand, you know, navigate that as you continue on sharing us your experience of why you ran for president.
Right. So, so that in itself is a whole conversation, right? And I will say something that usually when I talk about it, many Africans frown upon it.
Okay.
I think it's not just good enough to say come home, right? There are so many things that will not allow that to happen until certain things have happened. And I think, you know, on atop that list of what must happen in order for this come home thing to start to become reality is African reparations for African descendants of slaves.
Yeah, let's not skate over that.
I'm not saying that. I'm listening.
And when I talk about it, sometimes Africans are like, "Oh no, don't, you can't say that." That I said, no. You have to understand it the way it must work effectively, right? Now, for many people here, for many African descendants of slaves, right, you have to recognize that part of what is missing for them is that connection to an identity, or rather that connection to a culture and tradition that gives them an identity similar to those of their ancestors, right? These are not people who ran into slave ships and say, "Oh, take me, I want to leave this continent." No, these are people that were taken against their will.
Yeah.
So we must find ways to show them that we're reaching out to say, you were part of us, we want you back.
Okay.
Now, this is the way I suggest that happens. There are, I think, 19 countries in Africa today where slave trade happened from. I think 19. I may be off by 1 or 2, but I think it's 19. It is important that these nations, and in fact, inclusive of others, right, come together and say, this is what we want to do. It is not your fault that your ancestors were taken away from you. We want to create a path to citizenship for you to identify with the continent, right? So here is a conditional passport, right? You pay, say, $100 for this passport to get this conditional 5 to 7 year passport. And within this 5 to 7 years, here are the conditions you must meet. 1, you have to visit the continent, say, twice in this 7 years, right? You invest something affordable, say between $1,000 and $5,000, you know, within this 7 years, right? If you don't live here, we would charge you, say, a $50 a year tax, or $100 a year, you know, non-resident tax, whatever it is.
Right.
If you meet all of these requirements in 7 years, or in 5 years, or in 10 years, then you get a permanent passport that qualifies you as a citizen of this nation. Now, let's break down the math. If you sell a passport for $100, right? And say 10 million people in the diaspora purchase the passport, right? And when I mean diaspora, 10 million, I mean there are what, 40-something million African Americans.
Right.
What people don't recognize is that Brazil has the second largest population of Black people in the world.
Yep.
Brazil has more Black people than every other African nation besides Nigeria.
Yeah,
right?
84 million, I think it is.
86, according to your notes, 86.
86, thank you, yeah.
It could be more than that.
Yeah, probably is more.
I would say about 105, 110.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
so
America, I think
the point
America has 60 or something like that.
let's see, if 10 million people buy into this passport, right? 10 million by 100, that's 6, 7, 8, 9. That's $1 billion. Correct? Yeah.
You're the math genius.
Yeah.
That's $1 billion on the continent just from that. And in fact, what you could do is say, hey, for the first year, this passport is $100. After 1 year, it goes up to 150 or 200, right? So that you get the numbers within that 1 year, right? So within that 1 year, you're already infusing $1 billion, $1 billion Black dollars onto the continent, right? Now, remember, there are conditions as well that says, okay, you have to visit the continent at least twice within this 7 years. Let's say each trip costs you about $2,500 per trip.
Okay.
Excuse me. And let's, for the sake of math, go again with, you know, this 10 million people. Once again, that's, okay, so 2 trips is $5,000. You have 10 million people. That's what? 5 billion.
Okay.
Right? No, 50 billion.
Okay.
That's 50 billion on the continent.
All right.
In 5 to 7 years. Right?
Right.
Now, if you have that yearly tax, say the $100 a year, if you don't live there, that's $700 a year, right? That's an additional $7 billion within this 7 years.
Okay.
You now start to see how you can easily infuse $50 to $100 billion within a 7-year period onto the continent. Now, for this to be effective, that money must go into development.
Right.
So either it goes into setting up funds that will fund different projects within these nations where people have bought passports from, or they go directly into, you know, capital development, whatever. However, that the point is all of that money must be directed at development.
Yes. I hear you.
Now, you have killed 2 birds with 1 stone. You have given people a sense of identity that they have always sought after, right? This becomes a passport for people who say, you know what? F America for all of its, you know, racist and oppressive systems, moving back to Africa.
Copy. Got you.
Right? Or, you know, in this world of COVID now, where you don't have to go into an office to work for someone, you know what? I'm buying a house in Africa somewhere, and I'm moving there because now I can work remote from there.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So for the African descendants of slaves or people out here, there is that sense of belonging. Yes, there will still be some friction in terms of culture, right? In adapting and learning about the people and the people embracing and appreciating you. I actually think that would be the easier part, right? Especially if you're bringing development. But what you have done is you have infused Black dollars on the continent for the continent's development. And then what now happens is, with this citizenship that people now have and own, they now have a say. If I have a community of 100 people that decide, oh, we're picking this community to go build, you know, whatever, you can now start to see how development also now comes to Africa.
Very good.
From Black dollars.
Very good. Very good.
So, African reparations for African descendants of slaves is number one.
So those African reparations isn't, because I was thinking along the lines as if the U.S. government was going to give us reparations. You're talking about we take it upon ourselves.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to take it upon ourselves. That, I mean, they can assist, but we have to have the plan in order.
We can't force the U.S. government to give reparations. I mean, they've been owing that for over 100 years now, right?
Yeah.
But my point is, in addition to demanding that the U.S. government do that, Africa also has that responsibility to African descendants of slaves.
Yeah. And I think Chike is exactly what you're saying. Like, because again, growing up here in America, us as African Americans in the diaspora, we are told that they don't want you. They never did want you. They treat you horrible over there. I mean, I know that was not always the case. I know there are some people like that, just like there's some people here in America that say, y'all Africans. I'm like, y'all Africans, but you African. You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't want to recognize your full Africanness, you still part African. We say y'all Africans. I mean, what is that? But I think it's like you said, that like I mentioned earlier, that whole African American versus African thing. You know, that what we're taught that is ugly, is not beautiful, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I mean, majority of the resources come out of the motherland, out of the African continent, not the country, continent, right?
Yeah.
So in reference to what you're talking about as far as the influx of Black America funneling their money resources through Africa, how does that play into the breakdown of some of the atrocities and also the financial structure of, like, I think it's the Naira in Nigeria, right? Is it with the Naira? How does that, I guess, impact positively and negatively on the country, or could?
So to me, anything that's bringing development has all positives. Of course, there will be cons, but it's a net positive, right? Because what would happen is, as people start to become citizens, then they also start to demand good governance, right? And the fact that you have American passports still, you're still American, but now you're also Nigerian, means that you now have a new crop of people who can flock in and vote, right? People who understand democracy, that can shape things in a different way, in a way that benefits the nation, right? An influx of dollars means that Naira appreciates as well, right? So either way you look at it, it would still be a net positive for the nation, in my opinion. And then, you know, for people of African descent here, it provides an escape besides just identity and a connection to the continent, or to the cultures and traditions of the ancestors. It provides an escape. I tell people one of the greatest blessings of going to run for office in Nigeria is not at any time feeling this, you know how subconsciously as a Black man in America, you see a cop far away and subconsciously you're wondering where your phone is because you want to make sure nobody assumes, you know, your cell phone as a weapon, or pretty much you get what I mean? Yeah, so people don't understand that. That was the greatest liberty that I enjoyed being in Nigeria. I never for once had to worry about white supremacy. And I didn't even understand it. I didn't recognize it until when I was coming back. Now, on my flight from Nigeria to London, it was fine because we're all Black on the plane.
Yeah.
But then London back to New York, when the white people came in, then you remember, oh my God, it hits you like someone has just thrown a whole, rock, tombstone on your head. Like, oh my God, this is the trauma and the reality of being Black in America.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's deep.
It's that there's some psychological liberty that comes with being in an environment where you're not worried about the color of your skin.
But that's not a factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I experienced some of that too. I think Chike, I talked to y'all about it before, but that's one of the things that's so beautiful about historically Black colleges, universities, because you get a little bit of that in that cocoon, as I call it. They call HBCU she because they nurture you, right?
Mm.
And that's what's the beauty of it when people really get a chance to experience it in its totality, that it gives you a part of that. It's like the part, and you may have came from a neighborhood that was all Black, but it's a different caliber of people, all types of people from all over the world, that gives you that stability, and like you said, that feeling of we're all Black in here. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all are trying to achieve something. And yeah, it's not perfect for sure. It's definitely not, but it gives you that sense of pride and of support and like encouragement, just like you're talking about. And when you step out of that HBCU experience, you're like, oh, damn, I'm back in the rat, back in the belly of the beast. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm back in it.
Would you also say it gives you a sense of security as well?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Freedom you can breathe without thinking about, who's there, who's waiting to oppress me.
All right, so Chike, with that said, now we've also dealt with, and my dad wanted to talk to you too, as a matter of fact. I'm gonna do my best to try and get you two to talk. All four of us, as a matter of fact. But with that said, there was the question of corruption. And my dad wanted to let you know that they came at you on your interviews. We're going to put this in here, man, on CNN, Al Jazeera, and all that about corruption. And I said, don't let them fool you with that, Chi. That corruption all over. So
hello, welcome back to GMT. I'm David Eads. Now, we've been taking a very close look at Zimbabwe's elections in GMT today, the first time that the country's had a ballot without Robert Mugabe's name listed. Now, that's important because I want to turn to another African election coming up, Nigeria. The vote is still some months away, actually, but it is experiencing a bit of a youth movement because of a change of law just last year. The Not Too Young to Run bill was introduced, and it lowers the presidential age limit from 40 to 35. So that's opened up the field to people like our next guest. And joining me live from New York is Chike Ukaegbu, who is going to be contesting the presidential election in Nigeria next year. Chike, thanks very much for joining us. You say we don't understand the importance of the problems that we face. They would say to you, you really don't get the reality of the way this system works. Because, come on, let's be honest, it is a corrupt society. It's a corrupt political network.
Well, so, like I said, that corruption exists everywhere. I mean, part of the problem they have is they live through colonialism, where the UK actually came and taught them these corrupt practices. But in order to solve the problem we have in Nigeria, especially with regards to corruption, you need a leader who understands the problem of the people, who understands the heartbeat of the nation, and can postulate theories or postulate solutions based on that.
I'm saying that to say, let's say we get that group, right, of us that buy into the reparations, the passport, things of that nature. How do you deal with, and again, this is from your experience of running for the office and what you've experienced and interface with those political party structures that have been embedded in there. How do we deal with the corruption that so-called exists in Africa or the motherland? Because we would need that out of there first, because it wouldn't make any sense. If we're putting that money into the continent and these people are still taking, it's going to defeat the purpose of the development. So how would you answer that question in regards to dealing with that element of corruption that might steal the money that we're coming together to try and build and develop?
Cool. That's actually a very great question. I know we actually didn't talk about the election process, but I think we talked about it being important.
Yeah.
So when I've completely changed the way I talk about corruption in Africa, because and I had this debate with a group of Black kids, mostly Nigerians as well. I'm like, we must stop talking about corruption as a slight. I don't know if that's the right word. Kyle, correct me. You're the English teacher here. As a slight on our people, and instead focus on ineffective leadership. Right? Corruption is inherent in humanity. Period. Even in the U.S. In Europe, every single place. Donald Trump is crying that corruption is rigged him of the election, even though we know that's all bull crap, right? So even the president of America is crying that there are corrupt factors working against him. You know,
right? The corrupt is crying about corruption. How
exactly. You know, so I think we have bought into this narrative that Africa is so corrupt, and then we have taken that message or that narrative and have run with it. That we're now the ones doing ourselves harm with that narrative, right? I say, you know, there is hunger in Africa. There's poverty in Africa. And then there's ineffective leadership. People would do any and everything they can do to be able to put food on the table for those who depend on them. That to me is called survival, right? So from the context of Africa, sometimes when we talk about corruption, I think we need to start to replace that with survival. Okay. Now, I know what you meant was in terms of the ineffective leaders who've been embezzling funds, blah, 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 blah.
Infrastructure.
Yes. Excuse me. So this is where we make sure that we can leverage technologies in, you know, creating both transparency and accountability for what we just talked about, this reparations or the dollars from the reparations, right? Which means is one of two things. It would have to be, once again, a collaborative effort between the continent and the diaspora to say, the only way we will agree to this, the only way we get people to buy into this is if we are sure that this is how this would work, right? And that is not impossible. I mean, Ghana has become a beacon of hope in you know,
it has
ensuring that something like this can happen. There's an African American man here who built an entire estate in Ghana, entire community, right, where people can buy homes and live in this gated community. So it's not impossible. It can work. You just need to have the right people at the right table, ensuring that the right things happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we must the English word has gone, realign the way we talk about corruption and when it comes to Africa, because we're helping to perpetuate a negative narrative that is hurting more than helping us. Corruption is everywhere, everywhere.
Can I put one else in there, Cal? Can I throw it up?
Of course, go ahead. Yeah, no, that was a great, yeah.
My brother SARS.
Yeah.
What's the difference between SARS and SWAT?
Nothing.
How long has it existed? Who are the main people enacting these atrocities? And how does it relate to Black Americans, man? Because I saw in your posting on social media.
Indeed, endsars now, straight up.
Yep. So SARS, Special Anti-Robbery Squad, was this arm of law enforcement or police that was created many years ago to tackle corruption, quote unquote, robberies and fraudulent activities and all that. But as with everything that deals with people trying to survive, what it ended up devolving into was people who gradually now became extortionists and murderers and thieves, right? They randomly harass people, they rob you, they take you to ATMs and you have to withdraw all your money for them. They became thugs for political and criminal, agents, where I pay them money, say Kyle is my relative and we're fighting over a piece of land. I go pay SARS money. They come and arrest Kyle and pin some crime on him, sometimes kill him off. You never get to see him again. Wow. That way I'm gonna get the land. Yes. So they became a criminal, very, evil, wicked criminal factor in the country that were wasting a lot of young lives, that were terrorizing people as well. And I think from 2017, the whole endsars movement began. It may have been older than that, but I think 2017 may have been when it started to become a little bit more popular. And then it gradually died away until more recently, I think a video came out of a young man who was killed and thrown out of a car. There was a video that I hate to watch those things, so I can't really give you the right information of what re-triggered that event. Of course, in addition to COVID, people who were completely denied of palliatives, for 3 or 4 months of COVID. So people are hungry, people are doing nothing, and here are all these videos. Of course, people took to the streets. For me, in fact, they are still working hard to oppress, some of the people who led the movement. There was something that came out, I think, yesterday or so. The Central Bank of Nigeria, the governor of the central bank went to court to go ask for permission to freeze the accounts of people whom they claim helped to fund the protests. And they actually got that, So there is systemic oppression of dissent, which is dangerous, which is very dangerous. So the whole fight against SARS, while extremely important, the way I looked at it was from both sides. Our law enforcement agencies are not paid well, right? When people can't feed their families, then they resort to several things, right? But then, of course, that does not justify, all the evil and violent crimes they were perpetrating against people. On the other hand, the endsars movement, I was hoping would become that awakening moment for not just Nigeria, but the continent to start to fight back against useless evil leaders that we have. Of course, for about 2 weeks, there were peaceful protests. Young people would protest and then they clean up after themselves. It was peaceful. And all they were asking for then was, give us answers, abolish it, but don't just abolish it, because what you people do is you take out the name, you slap another name on it, but the system still remains the same. Right. Which is how we went from SARS to SWAT. Same bullshit, excuse my language. It took our president 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, 12 days or so, to come and address the people, or to give a national address, which did not address anything. He just said, yeah, we see you people, we hear you people, go back to your daily lives, which was insulting, which is Yeah, it was a slap in the face. And then, of course, after the massacre happened on October 20th, it seemed like there was a lot of confusion. Of course, nobody wants to die. So the question, that was actually when I decided to come out. Prior to that, we'd been doing stuff in the background. I had gotten all these messages, hey, the movement needs a leader, you should come be the leader. And I'm like, nope, it does not need a leader. Because having a leader means it's easy to cut off, right? It can extinguish you easily. But if there are too many leaders, this monster has too many heads, then it confuses them on who to go after. And that was what was happening, because then the government started asking, oh, who are your leaders? Who's your leader? And we all knew why, right? So I'm like, no. This movement is perfect the way it is. Let there be everyone doing everything, as long as there's a unified mission to it. But after the massacre happened, then people sort of dispersed, and there was confusion. And that was when I said, okay, it may be important now to throw my voice into the ring, just to inspire people, just to motivate people to understand, listen, it is not over, right? I said, part of the reason why I ran, we didn't finish that conversation, was to go in and understand their process. Understand their process so that you identify the loopholes and the flaws in their system. That now gives you, the leverage to come back and develop a better comprehensive strategy. So I said, listen, guys, you don't have to be out there. I know I live in New York, so I can't tell you to go out and protest because I am not on ground, right? So I can't tell you to go put your life at risk because I have security here, right? But here's where we now have to be tactical. We don't have the power to impeach the president or the vice president. The legislature does. But we have the power to recall legislators. Right? Recall means we tell the Electoral Commission, we don't have faith in this person anymore. We don't want them representing us anymore. Half the registered voters in this constituency have signed that petition, right? But a lot of Nigerians did not know that that could even happen, is in the Constitution. So that's where we are now. So I started doing a lot of speaking engagements just to get people to understand that your voters card, right? We do voters cards, does not just give you power to vote. It has dual powers. One is to vote, the other one is to recall the people that you elect. So what we need to focus on now is how to hold all of those legislators accountable and start to get signatures for petitions to recall some of them. Once you're able to do that, once you start to threaten a couple of them with recall, you would see that they would probably start to do some work.
Of course.
Right? Considering, of course, that the Nigerian legislature is the highest paid in the world, or at least one of the highest paid. I think it is the highest paid. Our legislators take home a minimum $80,000 to $100,000 a month.
A month?
A month.
Wow.
I didn't say naira. I said dollars.
Right. Dollars, right. That's right, exactly. US dollars.
This does not include all the allowances and all the other crazy shit that they take. Meanwhile, more than half of our population, tries to survive on less than $2 a day.
Wow. Whew. So Chike, I just want to kind of give people kind of a reference point. So those legislators are bringing home $100,000 US dollars a month. And you said that the typical Nigerian, the average Nigerian only lives off of $2 a day, right?
Less than
$2. What is the, I guess, the amount that it would take US dollar wise for them to be able to live, I guess, quote, typically comfortable, where they wouldn't have to worry too much about food, access to medicine and things like that? What would it take for them to live? What do you think?
Left to me, like what I was proposing was a minimum wage of at least $200 to $300 a month.
Okay.
Right. Right now, minimum wage in Nigeria is is less than $40 a month.
Less than how many a month?
$40.
Wow.
Thereabout, yeah. Could do, yeah, just about that. You know, which is nothing, which is, and okay, now mind you, the average size, family size is 5 in a household. There are 5 people in an average household. Either 5 people or 5 kids. If it's 5 kids, then it's 7.
Right, I was going to ask, right.
But I want to say maybe 5 in a household.
Okay.
I may be wrong, you know. But even at 5 in a household, to depend on $40, you know, a month, which many times you may not even get paid for months, even years.
What?
Yeah.
So how do they afford their rent? How do they afford?
Yeah, but based on what?
Good question. So that's part of the reason why our economy is heavily informal, right? Which is why sometimes teachers leave classes to go sell food outside, right? Families pull their kids out of school so that they can hawk food outside to bring in some money, so that people can survive, right? So COVID was very, very bad on the economy because when they did the lockdown, wherein they were supposed to give food to people, they did not. And mind you, many of these families are people who made a living, you know, based on what they were able to sell a day. But now you cut them off of that. And the palliatives that, you know, you were supposed to give to them, many of the politicians started to hoard them and then give them out. So what has happened since after the massacre, endsars massacre was, I think either someone or some people started revealing what warehouses that had all this food that was supposed to belong to people. So people started to raid them, you know, raid these warehouses and, you know, cart food away. It was a mess. It's been a mess. Yeah.
And I can't even be upset at that because it's like, look, I'm
not
my life and my family.
Yeah, and some silly senator was like, "Oh, I was waiting to distribute some of it on my birthday." Are you
on your wow? Wow.
Some of it, not all of it. Some
right. Some of it, and on your birthday. When is that, bro? When is that? Come on.
After people are dead. After people have sat for months and months and months without food. Without livelihood.
That's disgusting, man.
Yeah.
And it's just
that's what we have in Nigeria. It's unfortunate.
All right. So
it's disheartening too, because it's our people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Cal, please interject, but I want to get this in there, especially since it's a hot topic. And this is open to all of us, particularly Chike, who our guest. Joe Biden is president.
Yeah.
So Chike being our guest, right? Cal, to you, I'm posing this question to all of us. What do you how do you feel about the election that just passed? How do you,
and specifically the black voter turnout too? Like I want to touch on that.
Let's open it up. Let's open it up. Let's go.
Black voter turnout selection.
Let's go with it.
You know,
what are our feelings?
Pluses and minuses from your perspective.
Yes.
So Black people have been saving America since America was created. It wasn't a shock.
Yeah.
What shocked me, though, during this process was this narrative from Black men on how a very dangerous narrative.
Yes.
How, well, one, their support for Trump, and how Joe Biden has done nothing for the Black community in 47 years or however many years they call it.
Mm-hmm.
That was very dangerous. Very dangerous. In fact, I had to call somebody out from some live they did on IG. I said, listen, we need to have a session. I'm going to come on this session and we need to have this conversation. For one, I'm not, I tell people I'm an independent. I pick and choose where I want to be. In fact, I'm not even an independent. I can't vote. I'm a permanent resident. So,
you can really speak your mind here.
No, of course, I can speak my mind. I don't give a, whatever. I said, for one, Joe Biden, right, besides him being decent and being a man of compassion and empathy, and I know white people always have their flaws, period. White people have their flaws. Kid you not. Some intentional, some not, right? But for you to see a man who served the first Black president, right, and has become the bridge to giving us the first woman vice president, the first vice president of color, the first vice president who is the daughter of immigrants, that should speak volumes to me. Everybody talks about the 94 crime bill.
Right.
Okay, he may have authored it, he may have supported it, but every single Black congressperson, every single Black legislator in Congress voted for that crime bill. Every single one of them.
Wow.
Which means that they is one of two things. Either one, they decided, okay, we're all going to destroy the Black community, no, or they innocently tried to solve a problem in America during that time. Now, the impact of that may have ended up becoming net negative, but it wasn't intentional.
Okay.
So you cannot call that racist. Now, it's one thing to say he wrote that bill and all the Black people opposed it and all the Black people said, no, you can't do this, this is what it's going to do, and they still pushed it through. Then we would have a conversation. But no, many of them are still in Congress and in the Senate today. That's true. But they did not do a good job of fighting back against that narrative. And I understand why. You also don't want to see him come back to it, right? He apologized for it, which is good. But I think it was now the responsibility of the Black people who were in his camp to say, this was what happened. This was what really happened. We all signed on to this because we thought that was what was needed at the time, to fight the violence or the crime or whatever in that time. Now we recognize that may have not been healthy for our communities, and we're sorry about it. We hope to fix it. We will fix it in this new administration, right? So I'm not gonna go into all the other things, all the other, whatever it is. People can Google and look up his records, whatever.
Right. I want to interject. Kyle, come on, man. We gotta get I gotta get you, man. I gotta come at you.
Oh man, go ahead. Go ahead. That's what I was waiting for. I want them to get it all out because guys making some really valid points.
My counter to that, and I agree with you, Chike. You know how we go.
Our points.
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah,
be a
we got to
devil's
challenge
advocate.
each other. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's right. So just to be a devil's advocate.
Out of love, though. It's out of love. It's all love.
You can't know.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Just to be devil's advocate.
It's like,
Love this dude, man. All right, so to be a devil's advocate, man, I see the whole political structure in this country as two sides of the same coin. Right? I just see Republicans as more in your face with their racism, as opposed to the Democrats, you know, more hidden. They do it behind your back. Thank you for sharing some stuff with me on Biden in regards to the crime bill and things of that nature.
yeah, the crime bill, yeah, that's the major.
The long and short of it is, when we talk about reparations, particularly, there's some other topics we could talk about. Again, like, let me interject this real quick. I think we need to do a whole revamp of the political structure as it relates to us as a culture. Meaning, locally, we have to find those politicians in our general geographical area, our circle of influence, if they're not already in politics, motivate them to get in politics, so that way we can groom them to the position of presidency where we have a track record that we can track for years, so that we know when that person is in office, they're not going to circle back or revert back on what they promised us that represents us as a community. So I just wanted to interject that there real quick.
There's no way you can do that, by the way, but go ahead.
All right, so
because once someone gets into power, you cannot dictate what they do. They're the ones in power.
So you're saying, all right, so let me finish that thought real quick. I think it's two sides of the same coin regarding politics, right? In regards to that standpoint right there, I think we're rejoicing over Biden being in office, but really it's just putting a new name or a new face to a large extent on a system that's already designed to work against us. So, you know, they can do a little legislation here, a little legislation there. I don't think it's going to have a real big impact. So I just wanted to put that there. So now I'm going to come back to your point. You say it's
when I'm looking down, sorry, I'm actually looking at your screen. So I don't think I'm looking. Okay.
Come on, Chief. We already know this already. So and Cal, chime in. So the point I'm trying to make is, you're saying we need solutions to this situation, right? We need solutions to the political structure as it exists today. People died for our right to vote. Granted, great. Thank you very much.
Right. And die for just freedom in general. I'll say that.
And then
die for, you know, that was one of the things.
Right. So,
you know,
the democratic process is important. Voting is important. But the two things that I'm getting is that the whole democratic process is a fallacy in and of itself, because no matter who we vote for, there are people who are pulling the strings to get who they want in the office anyway, electoral college vote or what have you. So the suggestions bring tangible solutions to this conversation, Chike, from your standpoint, is what I propose is grooming someone to get to that position where they can be in office and spark change. And you're telling me that that's impossible, because once they get in office, we can't control what they do, and they're going to do what they want to do anyway, and most likely they're going to be influenced by the powers that be. So in other words, we as a black populace or group will, no matter what, even if we do try this, we still don't stand a chance. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, I'll answer that. Carl, what were you going to add to that?
Well, no, I was just saying that, yeah, people did die for our right to vote, but they really, I mean, our ancestors died and put their lives on the line for us to be free. And like voting is one of those things, one of those tactics. But when people, I think it's very misleading when people say, you know, people die for your right to vote. No, people die for my right to be free, to be a human being. And then outside of that, then we work what we need to do out. But I want to add in reference of, right, the Democratic, Republican, but also the local elections. Like, we still have the Senate. We still have the Senate that's coming up in the next, month or so that we have to vote on. So my thing is the energy that's put towards Biden, Biden winning, is more relief of, we feel like we have some civility back, some sort of civility back, whether that is through Biden, Kamala Harris, and what they represent on just that scale. But my trepidation is, like you're saying, once they get in office, what are they going to actually do?
Okay. So this would have been my perspective prior to running for office. What running for office did for me was understand that governance is a game of compromise. That's the way you make progress, right? So I've heard this narrative of, oh, you know, don't vote. They are the two sides of the same coin. They are, you know, one is covert racism, the other one is whatever racism. And no, Definitely no, right? And I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot change the system if you're not inside it. Period. So yes, it may have taken 240 however many years to get here. We've had an Obama, and there are many people, black people now are saying, oh, he didn't do anything for him. Like, you people are dumb as hell, and I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole different topic we'll go into later, but
Yeah.
not now, right? Now, worse are those who are saying, oh, we're not going to vote.
Yeah.
Because, oh, they're just the two sides of the same coin. That is the dumbest shit ever. Excuse my language. I get passionate about this topic. And here's why. If you are not inside there, you do not have a voice.
Mm.
You can stand on the sidelines and scream all you want to scream. The point is, you're still not making the policies. You're still not having any influence on those policies. And you have to abide by those policies, whether you like it or not, unless you leave.
All right, so I'm gonna come back to. Let me come back. I'm loving it. Come on, so it might be different with regards to police, but I've heard the same tactic or strategy used with police, like for black officers getting into the law enforcement or the police thing, right? Where they can work from the inside and make changes from the inside because they can't make the change from the outside. But we've seen how that works, where there's the blue wall of steel or something. Would you say that's the same thing in regards to politics, where as you get inside and they control you once you get inside too? No.
So it's a little similar, but it's not the same, right? Politics for a nation like this. Remember, this is over 2 centuries of trying. You inch forward, you inch backward. You inch a little bit more forward, you inch backward. It's never going to be we wake up one day and everything has flipped on its head. No, it's counting those successes and building on them. Right? Now, why that is important is this. Yes, we've had an Obama. What Obama did was make every single young black boy believe I can actually achieve this.
Correct. That is correct.
So you may not feel the impact of Obama on your lives today, but that was not the symbolism of Obama being there.
Mm-hmm.
It was breaking that glass ceiling so that our children can soar beyond that into their wildest dreams. That is all Obama needed to accomplish, which is why I'm not going to go into all the other things that he did accomplish, right? Same thing with Kamala Harris. In 2016, when people asked me, what do you think happened? And I said, the most dangerous group in America today is a white woman. People thought I was joking. Let me explain it again, and I'll give it a little bit more context. You know, in 2020, I said there were 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump in 2016.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah,
that's more than 1 in 2. And people are like, oh, well, is the uneducated? No, it wasn't. 47% of educated white women voted Donald Trump in 2016. That's almost 1 in 2.
Yeah.
Even though it was a white woman who was running against him. And that's because when you sit back, and of course, I'm not saying all white women, because of course, there were also a group of them that voted for Hillary, right?
Right.
But when you sit back and look at it, 2016 was a case of white supremacy versus feminism. Feminism meant that you're not just empowering white girls, you're also empowering black and brown girls. In the grand scheme of things, for the white woman, white supremacy trumps feminism. Because even in feminism, there's white feminism and then others.
Right.
So she is protected in white supremacy.
Right.
Your black and brown girls are not.
Correct.
So it was in their best interest to vote Donald Trump.
Okay.
Because the white woman sits at the intersection of privilege and affirmative action.
Yep.
And can navigate both very easily. Right? Now, the irony to that, or to what happened in 2016, was the day after his inauguration, they were all in the streets protesting against Donald Trump. The Women's March that happened January 21st, 2017.
Okay.
Excuse me, you all may have forgotten that.
No,
look it up.
Yeah.
I remember.
I remember, but I don't remember the date, but I do remember.
Yes, it was the day. I'm like, what are you people protesting? He hasn't even started his presidency yet. Y'all voted him in. I thought you said grabbing them by the pussy was locker room talk.
Right.
That's what boys do. So what are you protesting? Okay, fine. 4 years run by. They all screaming, oh, Donald Trump is this, is that, is that. Guess what? The percentage of white women who voted for Donald Trump went up in 2020.
What? Get out of here. What?
White men dropped significantly. For white women, the percentage went up.
So in 2016, it was the combination of the white women and white men that put Trump in office. In 2020, it's because the white men dropped, and that's why he didn't. That's what you're telling me. That's why he didn't get reelected.
Yep. White women went up.
That makes no sense.
Okay. Because once again, for the white woman, she has security in white supremacy. Joe Biden is a bridge to colored whatever, to people of color.
Right.
It's a bridge to power to people of color. And in fact, Joe Biden would have lost heavily if he had picked a white woman or a white man.
Okay. But wait, don't white men benefit from white supremacy as well? Why would their numbers drop if they benefit as well?
Because white supremacy still rules the day.
Because Biden is white.
Their position is not threatened yet.
Okay, so right, because I mean, when we talk about white supremacy, we're really talking about white male privilege, you know, in this ideology. That's pretty much what we're talking about. Supremacy ideology, right? So how does Biden and Trump play into that from your perspective? Play into the white male vote dropping for Trump?
Okay, so what people did not understand, and this is personal opinion, what people did not understand, and I think I mentioned it, with Trump's 4 years was all of them, Mitch McConnell, Bill Barr, all of those, you know, evil people, spent the last 4 years shoring up institutions to protect white supremacy.
Okay.
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 200 plus judges that are lifetime positions.
The Supreme Court.
3 in the Supreme Court within a 4-year period, right? Undid as much of Obama as they could, very happily and very willingly, right? It was about that.
Damn.
Right? Now, for the white woman though, Joe Biden means that the very first woman VP is not a white woman. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it even makes it worse. Period. Because when you look at history, you see all those white presidents, and then all of a sudden there's Barack.
Right.
Yeah.
You see all those white vice president males, and all of a sudden there's Kamala.
Right.
Okay. Damn, G. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm still trying to understand.
So, okay. So let me try to tie this in.
Okay.
So when I talked about the importance of a Kamala to the Black community, it was not about their policies. If you ask me, I think Joe Biden would be a better president than Obama. Not because he would be a better president, but because he's a white man.
Right.
So he will be able to achieve more because he does not have the racist factor that will affect him.
Yes. I agree.
Period.
I agree.
So he will be better for our communities. That's one. Two, Joe Biden understands, I mean, even if you had watched his speech yesterday, he recognizes the important role that African Americans played for his candidacy.
Okay.
Period.
Yeah, he has to.
Because prior to South Carolina, he was dead. He had no money. He had no organization, nothing. Until Jim Clyburn said, South Carolinians, this is the man you vote for. And that was a whole new breath of life into his candidacy.
Okay.
Right? Kamala, not only does she represent immigrants, people of color, you know, women, she is also HBCU.
Okay.
So when people say, well, you know, Democrats and Republicans are the same thing, they could have been 50 years ago. They could have been 20 years ago. But guess what? Since 2008, they are no longer the party of the white man.
Because of Barack Obama.
Yes. They're not. And the point is, we will be the most stupid people to let go of the opportunity to take over the Democratic Party. You're not going to set up another party that is ever going to work. Never. There are only 40 million African Americans. It would take you another 50 years, if not more, for you to catch up with white people in terms of population to get to the point where you say, okay, our party can stand on its own. Never. As in, that's complete delusion. When people say, oh, we need to, what was his name, Diddy? Oh, we need to form our own party. Never. They're already, like we said, over 1,000 parties.
And then we've done that. It's not like we haven't done, and that's what Diddy missed the mark historically. We've done that before. It's not like we need to start. We haven't had. No. We've always had own parties. Again, it's just in the scope of Republican Democrat, it could not stand up as far as, like I said, numbers and not even legitimacy, but yeah,
take over the Democratic Party. Period. Start to groom more, you know, candidates of color. The Ocasios, and you know, she's very polarizing. Yes, but to groom more people like that.
Yeah,
get them in power, get them in positions of power to start to make those decisions.
Right, and we have those people. We have those people. It's just, again, our energies and our interests are guided in other places. But it's not like we don't have. Well, this is the thing. You know, you and I and all of us talk about all the time. It's not like we have not ever had somebody like a Kamala or Obama or Stacey Abrams. You know what I'm saying? We've had these.
But what we've not had was strategy.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, whether you like it or not, a tree does not make a forest. You have to have so many trees, and you have to plant them for them to grow. But if you look at one tree and say, oh, it's just one, therefore I'm going to uproot all these other trees because this is not where they should be, then you've lost everything.
I hate sounding like a pessimist. Because I love everything you're telling me, and it's motivating me. But I gotta play the advocate here. I gotta
do it, because that's the point.
So, listen.
That's the point.
Can we agree on this? That the president is a puppet. He's a figurehead. He's a figurehead. He's just, to an extent. No, we can't agree on that.
Yes, but no.
Okay.
Not a puppet.
So let me ask you this other question. And just go back to 2000. You have to do a part 2 on this, Cal, because we got started off with this. I'm just so sad at the politics. So let's go back to 2000. What's his name? Clinton's vice president.
Al Gore.
Al Gore. Yeah.
He won the popular vote.
Yeah.
Correct? And he lost by the Electoral College. That took the power out of so-called the populace and put it in the hands of a select. No? The same thing that happened with Trump. He lost the popular vote and still got in office.
Dude.
Right. And again, we have to also...
There was never power in terms of selecting your president. Power has never been with the people in terms of selecting your president from the origins of this nation. I'll explain it to you. After your constitution was written, one of the most difficult parts of it was deciding how to pick a president. Your founding fathers did not believe that the lay masses were intelligent enough to pick the president. So even the 74 million, 70 million, blah, blah, blah people that voted, it was just an act in, whatever. It doesn't count. There are only 538 people that picked the president in this nation from the origins of this nation. So the real election of your president happens the third Wednesday in December, when those 538 people whom you don't have any hand in picking at all come together and say, okay, we'll pick the president. Now, there's something called a fateless elector. Fateless elector is a person who says, yes, I'm part of the Electoral College. I don't believe my state made the right decision in picking the president, so I will not pick the president that my state has picked. They have the right to do that.
And in them doing that, how does that affect the vote of that state, though? Do they not? I mean,
right.
So it's just like Trump. Trump won by 306 Electoral College votes during the election. During the electoral vote election, he won by 304 because there were 2 fateless electors who refused to vote for him. So by tradition, though, it has become a system where as an elector, you are supposed to vote the will of the people in your state. That's why after we have the popular vote count, we believe we know who has won. If come third Wednesday in December, all of those electors decide, you know what, we think Trump is better, and decide there is nothing any of these states can do about it.
He'll be the president after what we just had right now.
You just have a constitutional crisis and maybe war, but you all who think that your vote counts for anything, it don't.
Okay, all right, so let me interject on this, Chike, like about earlier. Then what's the point of voting then? What's the point of us truly voting and making our quote-unquote elected voice heard?
Thank you, Kyle. Good question.
Is that based on tradition and precedent, right? The elected align with the will of the people, but they are not bound by that. So you must still vote, because if you don't, and your state decides that, because you all think your vote does not count, you don't go out and vote, and the wrong person wins, those electors decide to go with that. You don't have a say. You can no longer say, oh my God, this person is wrong. So you must still vote. But based on the Constitution, it don't mean shit. Excuse my language.
That's insane.
Yeah. Many people don't understand the history of picking a president in this country. Go look it up.
All right, so to that point,
538 people.
I love Chike, you do your research, man. There's no question. I'll look it up, but you do your research.
All right, family, do your research too. Family, you do your research.
That's right. Do your research.
That's why we have them on.
That's right. So to this point, you say that the only way to change the system is to get into the system. Question, Out of those electoral college votes, if you know, if you don't, that's fine. How is that set up with regards to representation? Are those in electoral college, do they represent for the most part white supremacy, white people, or are there people of diverse backgrounds involved in that, such as African Americans, Asian Americans, Indians? What, based on your research, what does that look like?
So, well, I would say this, and don't quote me on this. I think democratic states most likely pick diverse electors, right? In 2016, I think I knew a few of them, people of color. I didn't know anybody this year, even though I heard Hillary Clinton is one of the electors from New York.
Although she's one, but go ahead.
No, it doesn't matter. The point is, so that in itself doesn't matter so much, or at least up until now, have not mattered so much, because based once again on tradition and precedent, you know, the electors vote the will of the people, right? So just like Georgia turned blue, their electors can get to that place and decide, you know what, we want to give it to Trump.
But is that the voice of the people, though?
It's not, but they are not bound by the voice of the people. Like I said, it's only just precedent and tradition that has made that happen.
Who gives them the right to have that power and make that decision like that?
Your founding fathers gave them the right, because they didn't think you people were human beings. They didn't think that. So that's the thing. So your vote is still extremely important, because it technically determines where those electoral votes should go, right? But it now depends on the electors to abide by that. And that has to be a conviction, you know, in themselves to want to do that. Yeah, but my point is, we talked about the fact that, you know, from a certain age right now, you have more, you know, children of color, or people of color, than white people. That would be the progression moving forward. The stupid thing we will do is to say, oh, these parties don't represent us, therefore let's dilute our power, our collective power that we can have, especially in one of the majority or prominent parties, right? Right now, you can say, well, prior to Joe Biden, Obama was the leader of the Democratic Party. Now it's Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden is just a bridge to Kamala Harris. And like it or not, the most influential people in this administration were Black women. It was a Black woman who turned, or a couple Black women who turned Atlanta blue, who turned Georgia blue. Stacey Abrams.
Yeah.
What's her name? Bottoms. The mayor of Atlanta.
Keisha Lance Bottoms. Right. Keisha Lance Bottoms.
You know, it's been Biden's campaign manager is a Black woman. Kamala's chief of staff is a Black woman, right? So it has been that. And with Kamala now in the White House, you can be sure that HBCUs will get a little bit more prominence. She's a Soror.
Okay.
You would care a little bit more about that, the Divine Nine and all that stuff. You people will start to see real Blackness on display. And that is the power of understanding progress.
Chike, thank you so much. We gotta do a part two. We're at the conclusion. Chike, thank you for giving us this extra time.
Sure,
man, you know we appreciate you, man. I just want to, I hope all of you learned and got something from this. It's a long one, so we might have to split it in two. You're going to see how powerful this brother is, how impactful this brother is, and it's in your best interest to listen to what he said, because he just taught me something about the Electoral College vote and how it works, and now you have a better understanding of how your vote works. To reach me, you can reach me on YouTube at Kayode Bentley, or you can reach me Candidate Advisor, or you can reach me at Perspective TV, where I do the one-to-one interviews, Candidate Advisor, where I do little discussions on relationships and things of that nature. You can also reach me at 4ts.org, the website for inner city youth. And of course, Grand Rising Collective, you can see us on YouTube and get more of these conversations that we've had. So that's going to be on Twitter and Instagram. My handles are Balogun Logic. That's BALOGUN LOGIC. And Facebook is Kaide Bentley. LinkedIn is Kaide Bentley. So that's how you can reach me if you have any questions and need to contact me for any like input or comments, whatever the case would be. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Definitely, family. Thank you for spending this time with us. We dropped a lot of gems in here. I mean, this brother here and just, you know, our history with each other and our experiences. I mean, hopefully it was very worthwhile for you as it was for us. Hopefully you've taken a lot of things to go back and research, some things that we even picked up on and we learned from the conversation. So thank you so much for spending time with us. You can reach me at my tag on Instagram, on IG, DIX_KYLE, on Twitter at KEASY773, that's KEASY773, and also on our Facebook page, of course, with the Grand Rise Collective Facebook page. Please subscribe, trying to get our subs up. And the subs make a difference as far as us continuing to do these conversations for you all and maybe provide quality information and just knowledge and connects, right? So we're working on some things right now going into the new year that we definitely want you all to be a part of and be privy to. And also we got maybe some possible giveaways coming up too that we're working on. So yeah, but you can reach me at those places. And thank you for the love, family. Chike, how can the people reach you, my brother?
Hey, hold on, Chike, before you do that, I forgot to add, I'm sorry, if you have any final words that you would like to share for those who are listening, and then give us your hand. That'd be a nice little segue into giving us your handles and stuff. But,
cool. So this is what I would say. 3 things. I always like to use lists. Just do something, right? I always say this, especially about Nigeria-ese. The vision for the Black man is humongous, right? Where we are going, where we as a people need to be going is huge. And it's so big that it can overwhelm any one person or any group of people. But what we can all do is find a piece of that vision and tap into that and run with that, right? I think that's extremely important. I think we need to start building more collective, institutions like this where we can have conversations and back it up with action. And like I said, it's important to recognize where we're going, population-wise, liberation-wise, all of that, and key into that, So just do it. Run for office. Not everybody will win, but you gain some knowledge that is invaluable, that can help you again or some other person, right? But connect to the community, stay in touch, whatever you need to do to build. I'm Chike Ukaegbu, Chike Ukaegbu on all platforms practically. IG, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, CHIKE UKAEGBU. That's it. Love you guys. This has been exciting. Yeah.
On that note, we're going to say peace on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Peace.
Yeah. Baby, yeah. You don't say very this. You know I have patience.